Move now, you don't belong here. These seats are for actual families. Officer Trent Weller hurled the words into Isaiah Booker's face as he grabbed the front of his marine dress blues and jerked him forward for everyone to see. You think that uniform gives you the right to sit here? Weller said with his lip curled, while the second cop stepped into the aisle and sealed Isaiah in like he was already under arrest. On stage, Malcolm stood frozen in his cap and gown, with the program trembling in his hand, only moments from crossing the stage, while his father was being treated like an intruder in front of the entire school. Isaiah never flinched, because the officers trying to throw him out had no idea 6 Navy SEALs in that audience already knew he belonged there more than they ever would. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The afternoon sun slanted through the high windows of Westfield High School's auditorium, casting long shadows across rows of metal folding chairs. Isaiah Booker adjusted his tie, his marine lapel pin catching the light as he settled into his assigned seat. The familiar scent of floor polish and fresh programs filled the air, mixing with the excited chatter of hundreds of proud families. "Look at that smile," Denise whispered, showing Isaiah her phone. On the screen was their son Malcolm's latest text, a quick selfie from behind the stage, his graduation gown perfectly straight, honor cords draped precisely over his shoulders. Isaiah felt his chest swell with pride. 3 rows ahead, Gordon Vail turned in his expensive suit, his eyes narrowing as they fell on the Bookers. He leaned toward his wife, whispering something that made her peek back with poorly hidden disdain. Isaiah noticed, but kept his expression neutral, focusing instead on reviewing the program in his hands. Vail pushed himself up from his seat, straightening his jacket as he made his way to where Principal Marjorie Vance stood near the stage. "Those seats in the 3rd row," he said, gesturing subtly toward the Bookers. "I thought we had discussed the preferred seating arrangement for major donors." Principal Vance's polished smile faltered. "Mr. Vail, I assure you, my grandson's graduation should be a dignified affair," Vail continued, his voice low but sharp. "Certain areas were meant to be reserved for important families." Vance glanced at the Bookers, noting their valid tickets, then back to Vail's stern face. She smoothed her blazer, already calculating the political cost of either action. "I'll handle it immediately," she assured him. Discreetly, of course. Isaiah raised his phone to capture a quick photo of the stage where Malcolm would soon appear. An usher in a red vest immediately stepped forward, hovering over him. "Sir, please remain seated and lower your camera," the usher said, despite the dozens of other parents standing and taking pictures throughout the auditorium. Denise's hand found Isaiah's arm as he quietly lowered himself back down. 23 years of marriage had taught her to read the subtle tension in his shoulders, the careful way he controlled his breathing. She watched other parents continue to snap photos freely, her lips pressing into a thin line. Behind the stage doors, Malcolm adjusted his cap in a borrowed mirror, unaware of the growing tension in the audience. He shared a fist bump with his friend Jake, rehearsing his walk one final time. "Can't believe we made it, man," he grinned, the scholarship acceptance letter feeling like a lucky charm in his pocket. Principal Vance caught the eye of Officers Weller and Dugan, who stood against the back wall in their crisp blue uniforms. With a subtle nod, she motioned them over. "We have a situation that needs handling," she murmured. "3rd row, center section. The family needs to be relocated. Immediately, but without causing a scene." Officer Weller's face hardened with immediate recognition. He'd seen Isaiah around town, always proper in his bearing, always so careful to be respectful. Something about that military precision made Weller's jaw clench. "We'll take care of it," Officer Dugan replied smoothly, already plotting the cleanest way to remove them without drawing attention. The officers moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency, their boots quiet on the polished floor. Nearby, conversations died as they approached the Booker's row. "Sir," Weller said, his voice clipped and cold, "you need to come with us right now." Isaiah looked up, his face a careful mask of composure. Around them, other parents began to notice, their excited pre-ceremony chatter fading to confused whispers. "May I ask why?" Isaiah's voice was steady, controlled, the same tone he'd used countless times to diffuse tension during his military service. "This isn't a discussion," Dugan added, stepping closer. "You need to exit the auditorium immediately." Denise's fingers tightened on Isaiah's arm. "We have tickets," she said. "These are our assigned seats." More heads turned. A woman 2 rows back stopped mid-sentence in her conversation, watching with growing concern. Someone a few seats over started filming discreetly with their phone. "Final warning," Weller said, his hand moving to rest meaningfully on his belt. "Stand up and come with us now." Isaiah remained seated, his back straight, his voice clear and calm. "Officers, I'd like to understand why you're asking me to leave my son's graduation ceremony." Weller's face darkened at the simple question, at the dignity in Isaiah's posture, at the growing attention from the surrounding rows. His fingers flexed against his belt as nearby parents began whispering, some pulling out phones, others exchanging worried glances. Through it all, Isaiah stayed perfectly still, one hand resting protectively over Denise's trembling fingers, his eyes never leaving Weller's increasingly hostile glare. The tension stretched like a wire about to snap, filling the space between them with dangerous potential. The sound of the stage doors opening echoed through the auditorium as the first row of seniors began filing in. Somewhere in that line, Malcolm waited excitedly, unaware that his father was about to be forcibly removed from one of the most important moments of his life. Officer Weller's shadow fell across Isaiah like a threatening cloud. "Stand up, now!" His voice carried the sharp edge of authority that expected instant obedience. Isaiah kept his hands visible in his lap, his military training guiding every careful movement. "Officer, I'd appreciate knowing what disturbance I've caused." "You're disrupting the ceremony," Weller snapped, though the graduation hadn't even begun. His hand remained on his belt, fingers drumming near his holster. Denise's grip tightened on Isaiah's arm. "We have every right to be here," she said, pulling out their tickets with her free hand. The blue paper trembled slightly as she held them up. "Row C, seats 12 and 13. These were assigned to us." Officer Dugan stepped closer, positioning himself to block the view of nearby parents. "Ma'am, this doesn't concern you. Stay out of it." The dismissal in his tone drew quiet gasps from those close enough to hear. A mother 3 seats down raised her phone, pretending to check messages while actually recording. More phones appeared throughout the nearby rows, held at careful angles. "I'd like to speak with Principal Vance," Isaiah said, his voice steady, despite the growing tension. Through the stage curtain, the first notes of pomp and circumstance began to play faintly as the seniors lined up. Gordon Vale watched from his prime seat, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He leaned back, enjoying how his whispered complaint had set this machinery in motion. Other wealthy donors around him shifted uncomfortably, some averting their eyes, others pretending to be absorbed in their programs. "Last warning," Weller growled. "Get up and walk out, or we'll assist you." Isaiah took a deep breath, then rose slowly to his full height. His movements were deliberate, careful not to make any gesture that could be misinterpreted. "I will not be leaving my son's graduation without cause. He earned this day. We earned this day." Behind the stage curtain, Malcolm heard the growing murmur from the audience. He broke formation for a moment, peeking through a gap in the heavy fabric. His heart dropped when he saw his father standing rigidly between 2 officers, his mother's face tight with worry. Other seniors began whispering, noticing his distress. "Dad?" Malcolm whispered, too softly for anyone to hear. The honor cords around his neck suddenly felt heavy, like they were choking him. Back in the audience, Weller's patience snapped. He grabbed Isaiah's elbow, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "You're coming with us now." "Take your hands off him!" Denise's voice rose sharply. She stood up too, her program falling forgotten to the floor. "He hasn't done anything wrong." "My son is about to walk across that stage," Isaiah said, his voice carrying clearly through the tense silence that had fallen over their section. The words came out with quiet dignity. Each one waited with resolve. "No one has the right to erase me from his day without cause." Weller's face flushed red. The challenge in Isaiah's calm statement, the simple, undeniable truth of it, seemed to infuriate him more than any shouting could have. He jerked Isaiah's arm roughly, trying to force him toward the aisle. A chair scraped loudly against the floor several rows back. Then another. And another. Throughout the auditorium, men began rising from their seats. They moved without hurry or panic, but with unmistakable purpose. Their faces carried the same disciplined focus, the same measured assessment of a situation about to go wrong. "Stop this," Denise pleaded, seeing how Weller's grip tightened on her husband's arm. "Please, our son is watching." She was right. Malcolm stood frozen in the wings, horror-struck as he watched the officers manhandling his father. Other students crowded around him, their phones out, capturing everything through the curtain's gap. Isaiah didn't resist Weller's grip, but he didn't help him either. He stood like an anchor, solid and immovable. His eyes remained forward, fixed on the stage where his son should have been experiencing pure pride instead of this moment of shame. "You're making this worse for yourself," Officer Dugan warned, reaching for Isaiah's other arm. His carefully neutral expression had transformed into something harder, more frustrated. The sound of more chairs scraping back echoed through the auditorium. The standing men began moving toward the center aisle with quiet determination. Their movements were coordinated without any obvious signals, flowing through the crowd with tactical precision. Weller gave Isaiah's arm another sharp jerk, trying to throw him off balance. "Move!" he ordered through clenched teeth. But Isaiah's voice cut through the tension, calm and clear. "You do not have the right to erase me from my son's day." The words hung in the air like a challenge, recorded by dozens of phones, witnessed by hundreds of eyes. They seemed to freeze the moment, crystallizing everything wrong about what was happening. Then, as if in answer, the standing men took their first synchronized step forward. The murmur in the auditorium swelled into a collective gasp as 6 men rose from different sections. Their movements carried the fluid precision of coordinated action, though they'd exchanged no signals. Malcolm, peering through the stage curtain, watched them converge with growing hope. Lucas Creed stepped into the center aisle first, his bearing unmistakably military. His voice cut through the tension with quiet authority. "Take your hands off that Marine!" Officer Weller's grip on Isaiah's arm faltered slightly, but his face hardened with defensive anger. "This is a police matter. Back away." "It's also on video." Ben Stratton held his phone steady, recording everything. His stance was relaxed but purposeful as he captured every detail of Weller's aggressive posture and Isaiah's controlled restraint. Omar Hayes moved smoothly through the crowd, positioning himself near Denise. His presence created a buffer between the growing tension and the anxious families around them. Parents pulled their smaller children closer, sensing the shift in atmosphere. "We're retired and active-duty Navy SEALs," Lucas continued, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "And we're witnessing you assault a decorated Marine Corps veteran at his son's graduation. Think carefully about your next move." The blood drained from Officer Dugan's face as he processed the implications. His hand dropped away from his belt, where it had been hovering near his weapon. The quick mental calculation was visible in his eyes. 6 highly trained military operators versus 2 local cops who'd picked the wrong target. Principal Vance hurried down the aisle, her heels clicking rapidly against the floor. "Officers, please, there's been a misunderstanding." Her polished smile couldn't hide her panic as she realized how quickly the situation had spiraled beyond her control. "Has there?" Nate Colfax stepped forward, his question sharp as a blade. "Then explain why a Marine staff sergeant with valid tickets is being forcibly removed while others take photos freely. We're very interested in understanding that policy." Victor Shaw and Eli Mercer had taken up positions that subtly controlled the space, their presence creating a protective circle around Isaiah and Denise. They moved with the practiced efficiency of men who'd secured countless spaces under far more dangerous conditions. The audience's attention was now completely focused on the confrontation. Hundreds of phones recorded every word, every gesture. The wealthy donors who'd been so comfortable with a black family being quietly removed now shifted uneasily in their seats, aware of how it would look on social media. Principal Vance faltered, her usual diplomatic smoothness deserting her. "There was a complaint about..." "About what?" Ben Stratton's question carried clearly as he continued filming. "About a father wanting to see his son graduate? About a family using their assigned seats?" Gordon Vales sank lower in his chair, suddenly very interested in his program. The other donors around him created careful distance, not wanting to be associated with what was unfolding. Isaiah remained straight-backed and dignified despite Weller's grip on his arm. He hadn't raised his voice once, hadn't made a single aggressive move. His composure stood in stark contrast to the officer's escalating behavior. "Officers," Lucas said with deadly quiet, "you have 3 seconds to remove your hands from Staff Sergeant Booker." Weller's fingers unclenched slowly, reluctantly. The red flush of anger and humiliation crept up his neck as he stepped back. Dugan retreated a half step as well, trying to project professional detachment rather than the defeat written all over his face. Principal Vance seized the moment to save what she could. "Please, everyone take their seats. The ceremony needs to continue. The Bookers are welcome to stay, of course. This was all just a terrible mix-up." Behind the curtain, Malcolm straightened his shoulders. Tears of anger and pride burned in his eyes, but he blinked them away. He would not let them see him cry. The other seniors around him touched his arm and whispered support, united in their shock at what they'd witnessed. The 6 SEALs maintained their positions as the tension gradually eased. They didn't cluster together or draw additional attention to themselves. They simply remained present, alert, and ready to respond if needed. "The ceremony will proceed," Principal Vance announced to the audience, her voice only slightly unsteady. "Please, let's focus on celebrating our graduates." The traditional graduation music swelled again. One by one, seniors began crossing the stage. Each diploma presentation was accompanied by polite applause, the audience slowly settling back into the expected rhythm. When Malcolm's name was called, he strode across the stage with his head high. He turned to face the audience as he accepted his diploma, looking directly at his father. Their eyes met in a moment of shared pain and fierce pride. Isaiah sat perfectly straight in his seat, Denise's hand clasped tightly in his. The small Marine pin on his lapel caught the light as he watched his son stand tall before everyone who had just witnessed their humiliation and their refusal to bend. The applause for Malcolm was noticeably louder, longer. It carried the audience's shame and solidarity, their recognition of what had almost been stolen from this family. Malcolm's honor cords swayed as he moved, each step measured and dignified like his father's had been. As the ceremony wound down and families began rising for the exits, Officer Weller leaned close to Isaiah's ear. "We're not finished," he whispered, venom replacing the authority in his voice. The evening air carried the mingled sounds of celebration, laughing graduates, chattering families, cars starting in the distant parking lot. Isaiah and Denise walked quietly through the emptying hallways, heading for the side exit where they'd arranged to meet Malcolm. Their footsteps echoed against the polished floors, a steady rhythm interrupted only by congratulatory calls from passing parents who had witnessed the earlier confrontation. "Let's just get Malcolm and go home," Denise said softly, her hand tight on Isaiah's arm. The tension hadn't left her shoulders since the ceremony. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Lucas Creed maintained a careful distance behind them, moving with the measured pace of someone who had spent years reading dangerous situations. He didn't like the way Officers Weller and Dugan had disappeared after the ceremony, or how the principal had suddenly become very interested in greeting families at the main entrance, far from this side of the building. The metal exit door creaked open to the cooling evening air. A row of security barricades created a narrow passage toward the parking area, leftover crowd control from when families had lined up hours earlier. The main crowds were now concentrated at the front of the building, leaving this side exit relatively deserted. "Staff Sergeant Booker." Officer Weller's voice cut through the dim light. He and Dugan stepped out from behind a maintenance doorway, blocking the path between the barricades. "We need you to complete an incident report before you leave." Isaiah felt Denise's fingers dig into his sleeve. He kept his voice level, professional. "My son is waiting for us. Any paperwork can wait until tomorrow." "It needs to be done now," Dugan said, his hand resting casually on his belt. "Standard procedure when someone disrupts a public event." "I didn't disrupt anything," Isaiah replied. "You tried to remove me without cause. It's documented. We're leaving." Weller moved closer, his bulk blocking Isaiah's path. His eyes held the dangerous gleam of wounded pride seeking revenge. "You know what your problem is? Men like you always want attention. Always have to make everything about yourselves." Isaiah turned away, angling his body to guide Denise back toward the door. He'd survived too much to let this small man's words matter. "We're done here." The shove came from behind, hard and sudden. Isaiah stumbled forward, his shoulders slamming into the metal barricade with a dull clang. Pain shot down his arm. Before he could regain his balance, Dugan grabbed him from the side, twisting his already wrenched arm. "Stop resisting!" Weller barked, loud enough to create a cover story, but not loud enough to draw help. "I'm not—" Isaiah's words cut off as they forced him down. His knees hit the concrete hard. Years of military training screamed at him to defend himself, but he kept his movements controlled. One wrong move, and they'd have the excuse they wanted. Denise's scream pierced the evening. "Isaiah!" Weller drove his knee into Isaiah's side, forcing him flat. The rough concrete scraped his cheek. Dugan wrenched his arm higher behind his back, the pressure approaching breaking point. "Don't you move," Weller growled, his voice thick with satisfaction. "Don't you dare move." Isaiah saw the radio coming down and managed to get his free arm up to shield his face. The hard plastic edge still caught his temple, sending bright sparks across his vision. Blood trickled warm down his cheek. Lucas Creed's phone captured everything. The unprovoked attack, the excessive force, the deliberate cruelty in Weller's expression. 20 feet away, a student who'd been live-streaming graduation celebrations to social media accidentally recorded the assault from another angle, her shocked gasp providing audio testimony to the violence. "Oh my God!" the student whispered, her phone shaking but steady enough to capture the truth. Denise had pulled out her own phone, her voice stronger now. "I'm recording everything. Get off my husband." Weller's head snapped up at her words. He finally registered Lucas's presence, the phones, the witnesses. His knee eased back slightly as calculation replaced rage in his eyes. "Dugan," he said sharply. "Let him up. Slowly." They released Isaiah with exaggerated care, suddenly all procedure and protocol. Isaiah pushed himself to his knees, then his feet, using the barricade for support. Blood dripped onto his collar. His ribs screamed with each breath. "You saw him resist the report," Weller said to his partner, loud enough to be theatrical. "Came at us aggressive-like." "Clear case of resisting," Dugan agreed smoothly. "Lucky we were able to subdue him before he hurt someone." They began constructing their fiction right there, barely bothering to move away first. Their voices carried clearly to the phones, still recording. "We'll need to write up the earlier incident, too. Yeah, how he tried to start something during the ceremony. Good thing we were there to prevent it from getting worse. Should probably mention his hostile attitude from the start." The lies flowed easily, practiced, as if they'd done this dance before. They didn't even look at Isaiah now, dismissing him as they crafted the story that would paint him as the aggressor. The setting sun cast long shadows across the school grounds as blood trickled down Isaiah's temple. Denise knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she pressed a tissue against the wound. The metal barricade still bore the impact mark from where they'd slammed him against it. "Dad!" Malcolm's voice cracked as he ran toward them, his blue graduation gown billowing behind him, diploma case clutched tight in his shaking hands. His eyes went wide at the sight of blood on his father's collar. "What did they do to you?" The 6 Navy SEALs formed a protective semicircle around the family. Lucas Creed held his phone steady, documenting everything. Omar Hayes, with his combat medical training, moved in to assess Isaiah's injuries. Principal Vance's heels clicked rapidly against the concrete as she hurried toward them, her carefully maintained composure slipping. "What is going on here?" She took in the scene with calculating eyes. "Officers, report." The suspect became combative after the ceremony. Weller said smoothly, "We attempted to complete required documentation, and he responded with aggressive resistance." "That's a lie!" Denise stood, her voice sharp with fury. "They attacked him without provocation. They slammed him into that barricade and struck him." Vance's expression hardened. "Mrs. Booker, please lower your voice. We have multiple witnesses stating your husband was uncooperative during the ceremony and afterward. I have the entire assault recorded." Lucas stepped forward, his calm presence commanding attention. "Clear footage of unprovoked police violence against a decorated Marine veteran." Officer Dugan smiled thinly. "Recordings can be misleading, especially partial ones. Context matters." His tone suggested the threat. They could shape any narrative they wanted. "We should call an ambulance," Vance said, already reaching for her phone, "for liability purposes." "I just want to go home," Isaiah said quietly, but Omar shook his head after completing his examination. "You've got at least 2 cracked ribs from that knee strike," Omar reported. "You need documentation of these injuries." Medical records matter. In the background, Gordon Vale slipped through a side door, vanishing before any media could arrive. He'd gotten what he wanted, the Bookers put in their place, and now he'd let others handle the mess. 20 minutes later, red and blue lights flashed as paramedics loaded Isaiah into an ambulance. Malcolm stood frozen, still in his graduation gown, watching his father being taken away on what should have been his celebration night. Ben Stratton kept his phone recording as Weller and Dugan spoke with arriving supervisors, their stories already aligned and rehearsed. The drive home passed in a blur of shock and pain medication. Inside their kitchen, under harsh fluorescent lights, Denise carefully cleaned Isaiah's temple wound while Malcolm sat at the table, his graduation cap abandoned beside a box of gauze. He'd only removed his gown halfway, as if stuck between 2 worlds, the triumph of graduation and the nightmare that followed. "Your father's going to be fine," Denise assured him, though her hands shook as she applied antiseptic. Isaiah winced, but remained silent, his military training evident in how he controlled his reactions to pain. Malcolm's phone buzzed. He checked it reflexively, Then his face went pale. "Mom! Dad!" "What is it, son?" Isaiah asked, recognizing the fear in his boy's voice. "The police department just posted something online." Malcolm's voice trembled as he read, "During today's Westfield High School graduation ceremony, officers responded to a disruptive individual who refused lawful instructions and later resisted official documentation attempts. The situation was resolved with appropriate force. Any claims of misconduct will be thoroughly investigated through proper channels." Denise grabbed her own phone, finding the post. Comments were already flooding in, people taking sides without knowing the truth. Then another notification appeared. An official statement from Westfield High School. "The administration fully supports the appropriate security actions taken today to maintain a safe environment for our graduating class and their families. Any disruption to this important ceremony is unacceptable, and we are grateful to law enforcement for their professional response." Professional response? Denise's voice cracked with disbelief. "They beat you for nothing, and now they're calling it appropriate?" Malcolm's phone buzzed again. His hand shook as he opened the new email. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." Isaiah reached for his son's phone, reading the message from the scholarship committee. "Dear Mr. Booker, we have been made aware of a serious incident involving your family at today's graduation ceremony. As character and conduct are central to our selection criteria, we are placing your scholarship under immediate review pending full investigation of these concerning events. We will contact you within 5 to 7 business days with our decision. Regards, the Marshall Foundation Scholarship Committee." Isaiah stared at Denise's phone, still displaying the police department's false statement. The words blurred before his eyes, not from the concussion, but from the crushing realization that this was so much bigger than one violent moment outside an auditorium. They weren't just trying to hurt him. They were trying to erase him, replace him with their own fiction, and punish his entire family for daring to stand up for basic dignity. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows, but it brought no warmth to the Booker home. Isaiah sat carefully at the table, each breath a reminder of last night's assault. The local news played quietly on Denise's tablet, repeating the police department's version of events. Sources say the individual became confrontational during the graduation ceremony. The reporter's voice filled their kitchen. School officials maintain that security measures were appropriate and necessary. Denise paced the kitchen, her phone pressed to her ear, waiting on hold with yet another office. She'd been making calls since dawn, her notepad filling with names and numbers. Malcolm slumped in his chair, dark circles under his eyes telling the story of a sleepless night. "This isn't right," Denise said, hanging up after another dead end. She studied Isaiah's face, noting how he winced when he reached for his coffee. "We need to get you properly checked out. Now, before their lies set like concrete." "I've had worse," Isaiah said quietly, but even those few words seemed to cost him. Malcolm pushed his untouched breakfast away. "This is all because of my graduation. If I hadn't—" "Stop right there." Isaiah's voice, though pained, carried the same authority that had commanded Marines. "You earned that diploma. You earned those honors. Don't let them make you ashamed of your achievements." "Your father's right," Denise said, grabbing her car keys, "and he's going to urgent care, now." The urgent care waiting room was half full, fluorescent lights harsh against their tired faces. Isaiah filled out forms while Denise documented everything with her phone: the time, date, facility name. Malcolm sat beside them, still in yesterday's clothes, scrolling through social media posts about the incident. The examination revealed what they feared. The doctor, a woman with gentle hands and concerned eyes, documented extensive bruising across Isaiah's ribs, a mild concussion, and abrasions consistent with being forced against metal and concrete. "These injuries," she said carefully, photographing the bruises, "are not from resisting. They're from being attacked." She added detailed notes to his chart. Denise watched every word being typed. "We'll need copies of everything." Isaiah's phone buzzed as they waited for paperwork. Lucas Creed's name appeared on the screen. "Isaiah." Lucas's steady voice came through. "All 6 of us are prepared to make formal statements. We've been talking, and we have connections you need. I'm sending you Helena Price's number. She's a civil rights attorney who handles police misconduct cases. She's expecting your call." Back home that afternoon, Helena Price arrived exactly on time, her briefcase well-worn but organized. She was shorter than Isaiah expected, but her presence filled their living room. She reviewed the police statement, her expression growing darker with each paragraph. "See this phrasing?" She pointed to specific words. "Appropriate force appears in both the police and school statements. Maintaining safety shows up 3 times across different releases. This isn't coincidence. They coordinated their story before releasing anything." She opened her briefcase, pulling out folders. "We need to document everything. Where are your graduation tickets?" Denise retrieved them from her purse, still crisp and official. "Good. Keep them sealed in plastic. The clothing you wore?" "Haven't washed anything," Denise confirmed. "Perfect. Photos from before the incident?" Malcolm pulled up his phone. "I have some from when we first got there, before everything happened." Helena nodded approvingly. "Email those to me now." "Medical records?" Isaiah handed over the urgent care paperwork. "Excellent documentation," Helena said, reviewing the doctor's notes. "Any witness contacts besides the seals?" "There was a student live streaming," Malcolm remembered. "I saw her phone up when—" His voice trailed off. "Get me her name if you can." Helena made notes. "Now, about this scholarship email." Malcolm forwarded it to her immediately. She read it twice, her jaw tightening. "This is coordinated pressure," she said. "They're using your son's future as leverage. They expect you to stay quiet to protect his opportunities." The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across their living room as Helena laid out what they faced. The authorities were betting on exhaustion and fear. Most families in similar situations gave up, overwhelmed by the machinery aligned against them. "They're counting on you choosing silence," Helena explained. "They think you'll accept the lies to protect Malcolm's future. They believe you'll let them erase what really happened to keep the peace." Isaiah shifted on the couch, his ribs protesting, but his voice was steel when he spoke. "They already tried to erase me from my son's graduation. They tried to make him watch his father dragged away. Then they beat me for refusing to disappear." He met Helena's eyes. "I won't let them bury this with silence." The room fell quiet, except for the soft sound of Helena's pen as she wrote. Through the window, they could see neighbors slowing as they passed, some supportive, others already believing the official story. On the coffee table, Isaiah's Marine Service photo sat next to Malcolm's senior portrait. 2 generations of Booker men who refused to lower their eyes. "Then we fight," Helena said simply, opening another folder. "And we fight to win." Helena Price spread documents across the Booker's dining room table, her laptop open to a blank witness statement template. The house phone rang again. The 4th relative in an hour asking what they could do to help. "Just keep sharing the truth," Denise told her sister, balancing her cell phone while taking notes. "No, we're not backing down. Isaiah's not built that way." From the living room couch, Malcolm's thumb moved in an endless scroll through local Facebook groups and Twitter feeds. His face tightened with each new post. "Some people are standing with us," he said. "But others?" He trailed off, not wanting to repeat the comments. Isaiah's phone buzzed with a message from Ben Stratton. The video file downloaded slowly, high-definition footage from the auditorium showing every moment of the initial confrontation. The clarity was startling. Weller's aggressive posture, Isaiah's calm responses, the immediate support from the SEALs. But the recording ended just as they reached the side exit, catching only Weller's first aggressive move toward Isaiah. "It's good evidence," Helena said, reviewing the footage. "But we need the assault footage, too. The partial view won't be enough once they start spinning this." As if on cue, Denise's phone lit up with an unknown number. The caller introduced herself as Tessa Rowe, an independent journalist who'd been tracking similar incidents. "I've seen the official statements," Tessa said, "but they don't match what witnesses are telling me. Would you be willing to walk me through the actual timeline?" Denise put her on speaker, and for the next hour, they detailed every moment. Tessa's questions were sharp, focused on inconsistencies in the police department's version. By 9 that night, her first article appeared online. Questions surround police account of graduation confrontation. "Look at these responses," Malcolm said, showing them his phone. Local church groups were sharing the story. Veterans organizations posted messages of support. Parents from the graduation ceremony began correcting the official narrative in community forums. But the pushback came fast and coordinated. By morning, an edited video clip circulated on local news sites. It showed a fraction of a second when Isaiah had shifted his weight to avoid falling, cut and slowed down to suggest he'd moved aggressively toward Officer Weller. "That's not what happened," Malcolm said, his voice rising. "They cut out everything before it. They cut out Weller shoving Dad first." Isaiah watched the doctored footage, his expression hard. "They're doing exactly what Helena warned us about." A press release from Superintendent Roland Pike appeared on the district website, praising Principal Vance's swift action to maintain student safety and expressing full confidence in our security protocols and law enforcement partners. Denise's phone buzzed again. Her supervisor, speaking carefully, "Given the community tension right now, maybe take a few personal days? Just until things settle down. We're getting some calls about—" Well, you understand. She understood perfectly. Stay quiet or face consequences. Helena documented each new development, building a pattern of coordinated pressure. "They're moving fast," she noted. "Someone's organizing this pushback." That someone became clear when Lucas called with information from his contacts. Gordon Vale had spent the morning calling school board members and major donors, insisting they present a united front against disruptive influences. The same talking points appeared in every conversation. Isaiah was dangerous. The police were justified. The school's reputation needed protection. "He's trying to bury us with influence," Denise said, watching another local business leader release a statement supporting the police version. Malcolm's laptop chimed with a new email. The Scholarship Foundation's logo appeared at the top of a formal letter requesting a full explanation of his involvement in the graduation security incident, copies of any police reports or citations, a statement regarding his father's actions, character references from school officials. The deadline, 48 hours. "They're not even pretending anymore," Helena said, reading over his shoulder. "This is straight intimidation." Malcolm opened his social media accounts, where his graduation photos had collected hundreds of likes just days ago. The comments under each post had turned toxic. "Your dad ruined graduation for everyone. Should have just followed instructions. This is what happens when people play the victim." Isaiah watched silently as his son's cursor hovered over the delete button for each celebratory post. 4 years of academic achievement, sports victories, and proud moments. Malcolm erased them one by one, protecting them from the growing storm of accusations. "I just wanted to share my graduation," Malcolm said quietly, deleting the final photo of himself in his honor cords. "That's all it was supposed to be." The image vanished with a click, leaving an empty space where his pride had been. The Bookers sat around their kitchen table, forks scraping against plates in uncomfortable silence. The pot roast, Malcolm's favorite celebration meal, had gone largely untouched. Every few minutes, a phone buzzed or a notification chirped, making them all flinch. The doorbell rang again. Isaiah rose slowly, his ribs protesting. "I'll get it," Denise said, touching his arm. Through the peephole, she saw Mrs. Thompson from 3 houses down, holding a casserole. That made 4 sympathy dishes today. "We're fine, really," Denise said at the door, forcing a smile. "But thank you for thinking of us." Behind Mrs. Thompson, 2 unfamiliar cars drove by slowly, passengers clearly filming with their phones. Some showed support. Others wanted to document where the troublemakers lived. Back inside, Malcolm pushed his food around his plate. His scholarship review notification kept lighting up his phone. 42 hours remaining to submit documentation. A loud crash from the front yard shattered the evening quiet. Malcolm bolted up and ran toward the door before anyone could stop him. "Malcolm, wait!" Isaiah called, but his son was already outside. Their mailbox lay twisted in the grass, the post splintered. A dark sedan peeled away, its engine roaring in the darkness. Malcolm took 2 steps to chase it. "Let it go," Isaiah said firmly, catching his son's shoulder. "That's exactly what they want, to provoke us into something stupid." Malcolm's hands shook with rage. "We can't just let them." "We document it," Isaiah said. "We photograph everything. We file a police report they'll probably ignore. We build the evidence." Denise was already taking pictures with her phone, methodically capturing every angle of damage. Several neighbors emerged with their porch lights on, watching and whispering. They barely slept that night. Every passing car made them tense. Morning brought worse news. Isaiah stepped out to leave for the VA hospital. His regular checkup couldn't wait just because the world was falling apart, and found all 4 tires on his truck slashed. "This isn't random vandalism," Helena said, when Denise sent her the photos. "The timing is too perfect. Someone inside the system is scared we'll find something they can't hide." Tessa Rowe called mid-morning with an update that confirmed Helena's suspicion. "I requested the security footage from the school hallway leading to that side exit," she said. "Guess what? They claim the system malfunctioned during that exact time window. No backup files, no recovery possible." "Convenient," Denise said, her voice hard. "Too convenient," Tessa agreed. "And they're stonewalling my public records requests about previous incidents involving these officers." Isaiah's phone lit up with a text from Victor Shaw, one of the SEALs. The annual Veterans Recognition Dinner was coming up next month. Isaiah had been selected for their Community Service Award weeks ago. "They pulled your name," Victor wrote. "Organizers said they're going in a different direction this year. Pressure from sponsors." Malcolm sat at the dining room table, laptop open for his scholarship review video call. Denise stood behind his chair, one hand on his shoulder. The Foundation's committee members appeared one by one in their Zoom windows, faces carefully neutral. "Mr. Booker," the chair began, "we have concerns about your involvement in a public disturbance." "I wasn't involved," Malcolm said. "I was backstage until—" "Your father's actions reflect on your judgment," another committee member cut in. "We invest in students who demonstrate maturity and respect for authority." Malcolm's shoulder tensed under Denise's hand. "My father wasn't—" "We've seen the police statement," the chair interrupted again. "We've heard from school officials. Your family's behavior has created liability concerns." They talked over and around him for 20 minutes, treating him like a problem to be managed rather than a student who'd earned his place. When the call ended, Malcolm stayed frozen in his chair. "They've already decided," he said quietly. "They just wanted to make it look fair." Isaiah watched from the kitchen doorway, seeing his son's shoulders slump with unearned shame. The sight hit harder than any physical blow. They weren't just attacking Isaiah's dignity now. They were teaching Malcolm that standing up for it carried crushing consequences. "I won't let them do this to you," Isaiah said. "They don't get to turn your graduation into a lesson about keeping your head down." His phone rang. Ben Stratton's name flashed on the screen. "Isaiah," Ben said urgently, "remember that kid who was live streaming near the side exit? The one who caught part of what happened?" "Yes," Isaiah said, straightening. "But the clip online only shows a few seconds." "That's because someone edited it down," Ben said. "But the original stream, the whole thing, it might still exist on the platform's servers. And I think I know how to find it." Ben's truck pulled into the Booker's driveway just after 8 p.m. Lucas Creed's car followed, parking along the curb. Between them sat Riley Torres, a senior who had graduated alongside Malcolm, fidgeting with her phone case. "I didn't know it was important at first," Riley said, once they were all seated in the living room. Her hands trembled slightly. "I was just doing my usual graduation live stream for my grandma who couldn't make it." "Show them, Riley," Ben encouraged gently. Riley pulled up her social media profile and navigated to her archived streams. The video quality was grainy in the evening light, but the audio came through clear. The camera shook as Riley had walked toward the side exit, chatting with friends about post-graduation plans. Then Weller's voice cut through. "Think you're special because you wore a uniform?" The officer's tone dripped with contempt. The camera swung toward the commotion. Isaiah appeared in frame, turning away from Weller. The officer's hand shot out, shoving Isaiah hard from behind. The metal barricade rattled as Isaiah hit it. Denise's scream pierced the audio. "Don't touch him!" she yelled. "Someone help!" The next 30 seconds showed exactly what the police had tried to bury. Weller driving his knee into Isaiah's side. Dugan pinning Isaiah's arm at an unnatural angle. The radio coming down in a sharp arc. "I stopped recording after that," Riley said quietly. "I was scared they'd come after me next." "You did the right thing keeping this safe," Lucas assured her. Helena Price arrived within the hour, watching the footage 3 times on Riley's phone. She immediately began typing on her laptop. "I'm sending preservation notices to every relevant party," she explained. "The school, the police department, the city attorney's office. They legally cannot delete or alter any evidence related to this incident now." Ben helped Riley export the video file securely. By midnight, Tessa Rowe had it in her inbox. Her article went live at 6 a.m. Exclusive! New video shows officers initiated violence against retired Marine at graduation. The still frames were damning. Weller's face twisted with rage. Isaiah's hands raised defensively. The radio suspended mid-strike. All 6 SEALs went on record. Their quotes formed a devastating timeline. "We witnessed systematic targeting of a respected veteran," said Lucas Creed. "The officers escalated without cause or warning," added Victor Shaw. "This was a calculated assault, followed by an orchestrated cover-up," Ben Stratton concluded. By 10 a.m., the State Civil Rights Office released a statement. "We are conducting a preliminary review of the incident based on new evidence and multiple credible witnesses." Malcolm's phone chimed with an email from the Scholarship Foundation. "Dear Mr. Booker, in light of emerging information, the committee is reconsidering its previous decision. We will review all available documentation and witness statements before making a final determination." Denise broke down crying when Malcolm showed her. Not from fear this time, from relief. That evening, Isaiah found Malcolm sitting alone on the back porch, staring at the sunset. He lowered himself carefully into the chair beside his son, ribs still tender. "I keep replaying it in my head," Malcolm said after a long silence. "When they attacked you, I was frozen. I should have done something." "Look at me," Isaiah said firmly. Malcolm turned, eyes wet. You think I was never scared in 23 years of service? Fear is natural. Courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about not letting fear have the final word. But I just stood there. You stood tall at graduation when they tried to drive me out. You kept your dignity when that scholarship committee tried to shame you. And you're sitting here now, ready to face whatever comes next. Isaiah gripped his son's shoulder. That's courage, Malcolm. The slow kind. The kind that matters most. Malcolm wiped his eyes. I'm proud to be your son, he said quietly. No matter what they say about us. For the first time since graduation day, they felt like themselves again. The weight hadn't lifted entirely, but they could breathe. Inside, Denise hummed while preparing dinner. Another sound that had been missing lately. Isaiah's phone rang just before 10 p.m. Helena's name flashed on the screen. Turn on the news, she said without preamble. The city's planning something. They're calling an emergency press conference for tomorrow morning. The victory they'd tasted turned bitter in Isaiah's mouth. The first splash of headlights hit the living room walls at 4:47 a.m. Denise noticed them through their thin curtains, the harsh beams sweeping across family photos and Malcolm's graduation portrait. Her heart jumped as red and blue strobes began to pulse outside. Isaiah, she whispered, shaking her husband's shoulder. Someone's here. Isaiah was already alert, military instincts kicking in despite his still healing ribs. Heavy footsteps crunched on their front walkway. Malcolm appeared in their doorway, face tight with worry. Stay inside, Isaiah told them, but a thunderous knock interrupted him. Police! Open up! We have a warrant! Denise grabbed her phone, fingers trembling as she dialed Helena Price. The attorney answered on the second ring, voice sharp despite the hour. They're here, Denise said. Multiple cars. Don't resist, Helena ordered. I'm on my way. Put me on speaker. Isaiah opened the door to find 4 uniformed officers on his porch, warrant in hand. Behind them, 2 news vans had already positioned themselves across the street, cameras rolling. Isaiah Booker, the lead officer announced. You're under arrest for felony assault on a peace officer and resisting arrest. This is his attorney, Helena's voice projected from the phone. I'm en route. Mr. Booker, comply fully, but say nothing. Malcolm gripped the stair railing as the officers moved in. His father, still wearing sleep clothes, was guided onto the front lawn. The officers weren't rough, but they weren't gentle either. Metal handcuffs clicked closed around Isaiah's wrists, right where the bruises from Weller's restraints had barely started to fade. Camera lights blazed. Neighbors' porch lights flicked on one by one. Mrs. Patterson next door stood in her window, hand over her mouth. The Rodriguez family across the street watched from their driveway, faces grim. Why now? Denise demanded, following onto the lawn despite the officer's warnings to stay back. What changed? One officer gestured to his supervisor, who pulled up a video on his phone. New body cam footage was released overnight. Shows your husband reaching for Officer Weller's belt during the graduation incident. Denise stared at the cropped, grainy clip. The angle was strange, showing only Isaiah's arm moving near Weller's waist, but not showing Weller shoving him first. That's not what happened, Malcolm said, voice cracking. You cut out the part where they attacked him. The supervisor ignored him. Isaiah was guided toward a waiting patrol car, head held high despite the cameras recording his walk of shame. Just before they put him in the back seat, he caught Malcolm's eye. Stand tall, he said firmly. The car door slammed. Red and blue lights painted Isaiah's face through the window as the convoy pulled away, leaving Denise and Malcolm alone in the harsh glare of news cameras. Inside the station, they stripped Isaiah of his dignity piece by piece. Fingerprints. Mugshot. Orange jumpsuit. Holding cell. The booking officer rattled off his rights like a bored grocery list, while Isaiah thought of Malcolm's face watching him being taken away. Helena arrived by 6 a.m., but the damage was spreading. Local morning news led with the body cam footage, edited to loop the same misleading segment. The police chief held a press conference praising Officers Weller and Dugan's restraint in the face of aggression. Superintendent Pike released a statement supporting the swift action to address threatening behavior on school grounds. By noon, social media was flooded with screenshots from the doctored video. Comments called Isaiah dangerous, unstable, a menace. The same people who had defended him yesterday now questioned everything. At 2 p.m., Malcolm's phone chimed with an email. He read it 3 times before the words sank in. Dear Mr. Booker, after careful review of recent developments, including serious criminal charges against a member of your immediate family, the Scholarship Committee has made the difficult decision to revoke your award effective immediately. While we acknowledge your academic achievements, we cannot maintain association with individuals involved in violent incidents against law enforcement. Malcolm's hands shook so hard, he dropped the phone. Denise picked it up, read the message, and something inside her hardened into steel. She spent the afternoon calling bondsmen while Malcolm sat silent at the kitchen table, staring at Isaiah's empty chair. The house felt wrong without him. The graduation photos on the wall seemed to mock them now, all that pride and promise twisted into something ugly. At 7 p.m., Denise set down her last cold cup of coffee and looked at her son. Malcolm had his father's quiet strength, even if he couldn't see it yet. But right now he looked lost, shoulders curved inward, like he was trying to disappear. They think we'll break, she said finally. They think we'll be so scared of losing everything that we'll back down. Apologize. Let them bury the truth. Malcolm met her eyes. What do we do? Denise stood up, her chair scraping against the kitchen floor. The empty space where Isaiah should be sitting filled her with something beyond grief, beyond rage. A cold, precise fury that cleared her mind like ice. We show them what happens when you wound a family that knows how to fight back. Denise's hands still tingled from pressing against the jail visitor's glass. Isaiah had looked smaller somehow in the orange jumpsuit, but his voice stayed strong and steady through the scratchy phone line. Remember what I told Malcolm at graduation, he'd said. Don't lower your eyes. Not for anyone. Now, past midnight, Denise spread documents across their dining room table like battle plans. Medical records from urgent care showed Isaiah's bruised ribs and concussion in clinical detail. 6 witness statements from the SEALs lay in crisp stacks, their military precision giving weight to every word. Riley's live-stream screenshots captured Weller's aggression frame by frame. Ticket stubs and seat assignments proved they belonged exactly where they'd sat. Malcolm slouched in a chair nearby, dark circles under his eyes but refusing to sleep. He sorted through phone videos from other parents, marking timestamps when the officers first approached. Mom, he said softly, what if they just keep lying? What if they have more edited footage? Denise looked up from a timeline she was building. Then we find the unedited truth. Her phone buzzed. Helena Price calling with an update. The attorney had filed an emergency motion challenging Isaiah's detention and the warrant's validity. They rushed the arrest to control the narrative, Helena explained. That gives us grounds to question their whole process. I'm pushing for a hearing tomorrow. Denise added this to her growing timeline. Each event connected to others. Vale's complaint, Vance's orders, the officer's escalation, the assault, the cover-up, the arrest. Patterns emerged in the chaos. Dawn broke over their kitchen window. Malcolm finally dozed off on the couch, graduation photos still watching from the walls. Denise let him sleep while she made more coffee. Her fear had hardened into something else, a cold, focused anger that kept her mind sharp despite exhaustion. By 8 a.m., Lucas Creed and Tessa Rowe arrived. The journalist and the former SEAL joined Denise in walking the school grounds, retracing every step from auditorium to side exit. Lucas documented distances and angles. Tessa sketched sight lines between security cameras. "The official footage going missing is too convenient," Tessa said, studying the loading area where Isaiah was attacked. "Someone had to actively delete it." They noticed an older man watching them from the maintenance entrance. His coveralls were worn but clean, his eyes wary but interested. Denise approached him carefully. "Walter Grimes," he introduced himself. "Been head custodian here 26 years. Retired last month, but I still come check on things." He hesitated, glancing at the school's windows. "Saw what happened at graduation. Saw what they did to that Marine." Tessa stepped closer, recorder ready. "Did you see any security footage before it disappeared?" Walter's weathered face tightened. "Didn't need to. I know every inch of this building, including things they forget about or try to hide." He led them around the corner, pointing to a battered gray box high on the wall. Old overflow camera, from before the new system. Principal Vance's predecessor put it in because the loading dock was a blind spot. Records straight to maintenance servers off-site, because the main system used to crash during big events. Denise's pulse quickened. "Does it still work?" "Far as I know. Nobody remembers it's here except us maintenance folks." Walter's voice dropped. "Morning after graduation, got told not to mention any auxiliary systems if anyone asked about security footage. First time that's ever happened." Lucas studied the camera's position. This would have caught everything. The approach, the assault, the officers talking afterward. "If it was running," Walter said. "If they haven't wiped the server yet." Denise felt electricity run through her veins. This wasn't just evidence. It was proof they never expected anyone to find. She pulled out her phone and called Malcolm. "Wake up," she said when he answered groggily. "I need you to get Helena and meet us at the school. Now." Watching her son arrive 20 minutes later, Denise saw something change in his posture as Walter explained about the forgotten camera. Malcolm stood straighter, shoulders squaring like his father's. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about fighting back. "They thought we'd stay quiet," Malcolm said. "They thought we'd be too scared to look closely." Denise squeezed his shoulder, remembering Isaiah's words through the jail phone. "Don't lower your eyes, not for anyone." Walter checked his watch nervously. "Look, that server. Once they remember it exists, that footage is gone, and they'll remember soon. But I still have access codes, if you want to see what it caught." "Can you help us?" Denise asked directly. The old custodian looked between them. Mother and son standing tall despite everything. Reporter ready to expose truth. Decorated veteran watching justice unfold. Lawyer prepared to act. He thought of Isaiah Booker in handcuffs. Of Principal Vance's orders to stay quiet. Of right and wrong. Walter pulled out his maintenance keys. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "I believe I can." The maintenance annex smelled of old paper and dust. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead as Walter Grimes sorted through a ring of keys, each one marked with faded labels. The room felt frozen in time, filled with outdated equipment and forgotten files. Denise stood close to Malcolm, both of them watching Walter's every move. Lucas Creed positioned himself near the door, alert as always. Helena Price held her phone ready, prepared to document everything. "Haven't been back here much since retiring," Walter said, finding the right key. "But some things you don't forget." The lock turned with a rusty groan. Inside, metal shelves held stacked boxes and old monitors. A desk in the corner supported a bulky computer terminal that looked at least a decade old. "They upgraded everything else," Walter explained, hitting the power switch. "But this system just kept working, so they left it. Feeds straight to permanent storage off campus. Can't be wiped remotely." The computer hummed to life, its fan whirring like it needed oil. Malcolm shifted his weight from foot to foot, unable to stay still. Denise gripped his arm, steadying them both. "How long does it take?" Helena asked, watching the ancient screen slowly brighten. "Few minutes to boot up. Then we'll need to access the archive." Walter typed with careful precision. "Everything's organized by date and location. Loading dock camera runs 24/7. Lucas moved closer, studying the system. "And this footage goes straight to secure storage?" "Separate facility. Different server entirely from the main security system." Walter navigated through dated folders. "That's why they forgot about it. It's not connected to anything else." The minutes crawled by. Denise felt each heartbeat in her throat. Malcolm's hand found hers, squeezing tight. This could be everything, or nothing. "Here," Walter said finally. "Graduation day. Timestamp matches." The video player opened, showing a wide angle of the loading dock area. The image was surprisingly clear, better than many newer systems. They could see the metal barricade, the side exit doors, everything. "Fast forward to just after the ceremony," Helena instructed. Walter advanced the footage. Figures began moving through frame, parents leaving, staff members checking doors, random students taking photos. Then Isaiah appeared, walking calmly toward the parking lot. "There," Denise breathed. "Play from here." The scene unfolded with horrible clarity. Officer Weller stepped deliberately into Isaiah's path, blocking him. The audio was faint, but picked up Weller's provocative tone. They watched Isaiah try to leave, refusing to engage. Then came the shove, violent and unprovoked, sending Isaiah crashing into the barricade. Malcolm flinched. Denise held him tighter. The footage continued mercilessly. Officer Dugan rushed in to help pin Isaiah down, the knee driving into his ribs, the radio striking his head when he tried to protect his face. Everything happened exactly as Isaiah had described. "Wait," Helena said sharply. "Look!" The officers stepped back, regrouping near the wall. Dugan's voice carried clearly. "We'll write it clean." Seconds later, Principal Vance hurried through the door. She paused, taking in the scene. Isaiah struggling to his feet, the officers standing together. She had to have heard Dugan's words, but she simply nodded and went back inside. "She knew," Malcolm whispered. "She saw everything and still backed their story." Helena was already working, her fingers flying across her phone. "I'm sending copies to my office server, my home computer, and a secure cloud drive. Walter, can you download this directly?" "Got a flash drive right here." He pulled one from his pocket. "Been carrying it since that morning, just in case." The file copied slowly. Each passing second felt dangerous, like someone might burst in and stop them. But finally Walter held up 3 loaded drives. "One for each of you," he said, handing them to Helena, Denise, and Lucas. "I'm keeping one too. Insurance." Helena checked her phone. "The emergency hearing is in 30 minutes. With this, we can get Isaiah released immediately." She turned to Denise. "Meet me at the courthouse. I'll have him out before dinner." Malcolm watched the footage one more time, his face set with determination. "They can't lie about this. Everyone will see what really happened." "That's right," Denise said. "Your father never did anything wrong. He just refused to be erased." They secured the room exactly as they'd found it. Walter locked up, then pocketed his keys with shaking hands. "Thank you," Denise told him quietly. "For remembering. For helping." "Some things need to be made right," Walter replied. "That's all." The drive to the courthouse took forever through rush-hour traffic. Denise kept checking her phone for updates from Helena. Finally, the message came. Isaiah would be released on bond within the hour. They found Helena waiting in the parking lot as the sun began to set. She had her tablet ready, the footage queued up. When Isaiah emerged from the jail doors, Still wearing his orange jumpsuit, Denise ran to him. Malcolm followed more slowly, but his steps were sure. They held each other tight, a family reunited. "You need to see this," Helena said, holding out her tablet. Isaiah watched in silence, his face growing harder with each frame. When it finished, he closed his eyes once, gathering himself. Then he looked at his wife and son, at the lawyer who had fought for him, and said simply, "Now we finish it." Isaiah sat at his kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee gone cold. The familiar space felt different now, charged with purpose instead of defeat. His ribs still ached from the jail cell's hard bunk, but his mind was clear for the first time since graduation day. Denise spread documents across the table, her organizational skills from years of community work on full display. "Helena's been working through the night," she explained, sorting papers into neat piles. "The footage gave us leverage we didn't have before." Malcolm brought his father a fresh cup of coffee, then settled into his usual chair. The boy had aged years in days, but there was new steel in his spine. "Start from the beginning," Isaiah said, his voice still rough from lack of sleep. Helena Price looked up from her laptop, where she'd been drafting motions since dawn. The maintenance camera footage created immediate pressure. Once the district realized we had unedited video, people started talking. And I mean really talking. She pulled up an email on her screen. This came from a clerk in the superintendent's office an hour ago. Someone's conscience finally broke. Denise leaned forward, reading aloud. "Internal messages between Gordon Vale and Principal Vance, sent during the ceremony." Her voice hardened. Vale wrote, "I won't have that family front and center in all the photos. This is meant to be a celebration of excellence." Isaiah's hands tightened around his mug. That family. "It gets worse," Helena continued. "Vance replied that she would handle the situation discreetly. Then she messaged security to find a reason to relocate you." Malcolm's face flushed with anger. "So, they planned it from the start? Before Dad even stood up?" "They did," Denise confirmed, "but that's just the first layer." Helena pulled up another document. "These text messages are between Superintendent Pike and Principal Vance, sent right after the assault." Pike writes, "The district cannot afford controversy. Align your statement with police documentation. This is about institutional stability." "Institutional stability," Isaiah repeated quietly. "That's what they call burying the truth?" "There's more," Helena said. "The police body cam footage they released? The selective edit that made you look aggressive? We found email proof that it was deliberately cropped and altered before distribution. They knew exactly what they were doing." Denise organized the growing evidence into categories: the original discrimination, the physical assault, and the coordinated cover-up. Each pile told part of a larger story of institutional betrayal. "This isn't just about Weller and Dugan anymore," Helena explained. "This is conspiracy and obstruction. The school board, the police department, even private citizens abusing their influence. They all work together to bury what happened to you." Malcolm studied the documents, his scholarship rejection letter still fresh in his mind. "How deep does it go?" "Deep enough that people are starting to panic," Helena replied. "The school board called an emergency meeting for tonight. They're trying to get ahead of the story before it breaks wide open." "Let me guess," Isaiah said. "They'll express concern, promise a thorough review, and urge patience while they investigate themselves." "That's their playbook," Helena agreed. "But we're not playing by their rules anymore." She shared a determined look with Denise. "We're going to that meeting, and we're bringing everything, the footage, the messages, the whole web of lies." Denise nodded. "It's time everyone sees exactly what they did. Not just to you, but to this whole community. How they abuse power. How they protect each other. How they expect families like ours to just accept being erased. Outside, the afternoon sun began its slow descent. Isaiah stood carefully, his injuries still tender, and walked to the window. The same view as always, their yard, their street, their neighborhood. But now he saw it differently. This wasn't just about his dignity anymore. It was about every parent who'd ever been dismissed, every student who'd been unfairly targeted, every truth that had been buried under institutional pressure. "What do you need me to do?" Malcolm asked, breaking the thoughtful silence. Helena glanced up. "Bring your diploma case to the meeting. Keep it visible. Remind everyone what this was supposed to be about. A son's achievement, a family's pride, a moment of celebration they tried to steal. And me?" Isaiah turned from the window. "You're our center," Denise said simply. "Everything we show tonight, every lie we expose, it all comes back to your refusal to be erased. Your dignity under attack. Your truth they tried to bury." They spent the remaining hours preparing. Helena organized her evidence for maximum impact. Denise coordinated with Tessa Rowe, who would be present to document everything. The 6 SEALs confirmed they would attend, silent witnesses once again. As dusk approached, they gathered their materials. Isaiah straightened his tie in the mirror, covering the fading bruises on his neck. Denise collected the files and flash drives containing their ammunition. Malcolm picked up his diploma case last, holding it like unfinished business. The Westfield School Board chamber buzzed with restless energy. Every seat was filled, with people standing 3 deep along the walls. News cameras lined the back, their red lights blinking like watchful eyes. The air felt electric, charged with anticipation and anger. Superintendent Roland Pike sat at the elevated board table, his posture rigid as he shuffled papers with practiced calm. Principal Vance perched beside him, her face a careful mask of professional concern. They had weathered controversies before. They knew the playbook. Isaiah and his family entered last, followed by Helena Price carrying a laptop and external drive. The 6 SEALs were already positioned throughout the room. Lucas near the projector, Ben by the main exit, Omar close to the board table, Victor watching the crowd, Eli next to the press section, and Nate standing guard near Isaiah's family. Malcolm clutched his diploma case, the gold tassel still hanging exactly as it had on graduation night. Denise kept one hand on Isaiah's arm, her fingers gentle over his healing bruises. The room quieted as they took their seats in the front row. Pike tapped his microphone and cleared his throat. "Good evening. We're here to address recent concerns about events at this year's graduation ceremony. The district remains committed to healing and understanding." His words dripped with rehearsed sincerity. "Unfortunately, there has been considerable misinformation circulating. We want to ensure everyone has accurate point of order." Helena Price stood, her voice cutting through Pike's prepared speech. "During public comment, we have new evidence the board needs to review immediately. Evidence that directly contradicts multiple official statements." Pike's smile tightened. "We have a set agenda. The agenda includes public comment," Helena pressed. "And the public deserves to see unedited footage from the night in question. Footage the district somehow overlooked when claiming no additional videos existed." A murmur rolled through the crowd. Pike glanced at the district's lawyer, who nodded reluctantly. They couldn't refuse to view evidence in an open meeting. "Very well," Pike said. "A brief review." Lucas moved to the projector while Helena connected her laptop. The room lights dimmed. The forgotten maintenance camera's footage filled the wall, its timestamp matching graduation night. The images were brutally clear. Isaiah walking calmly toward the exit. Weller stepping into his path, aggressive and deliberate. The shove that sent Isaiah crashing into the metal barrier. Dugan joining the attack. The strike with the radio that left Isaiah bleeding. Someone in the audience gasped, a parent started crying. The footage continued, damning in its clarity. Then Principal Vance appeared on screen, her heels clicking as she approached the officers. Dugan's voice carried clearly. "We'll write it clean." Vance showed no reaction, no objection, no surprise. The lights came up. Pike's face had gone pale. Vance stared at her hands. "Would the witnesses care to comment?" Helena asked. Lucas Creed stood first, his voice steady. "I saw Officer Weller initiate hostile contact with Staff Sergeant Booker, who showed remarkable restraint. Ben Stratton followed. The assault was unprovoked. I documented multiple violations of police procedure." Omar Hayes detailed the medical assessment of Isaiah's injuries. Victor Shaw described the pattern of intimidation that followed. Eli Mercer explained how the edited body cam footage had been manipulated. Nate Colfax concluded by connecting the incident to broader issues of institutional abuse. Each SEAL spoke with military precision. No emotion, no speculation, just facts. Their testimony formed an airtight wall of truth. Tessa Rowe's phone buzzed. She stood, holding up her screen. "I've just received leaked messages between Gordon Vale and Principal Vance, sent during the ceremony. Mr. Vale demanded the Booker's removal because, quote, that family shouldn't be visible in graduation photos." The chamber erupted. Parents shouted questions. Students began recording on their phones. 2 board members stood and walked away from Pike, physically distancing themselves from the lies. "There's more," Tessa continued. Messages showing Superintendent Pike ordered Principal Vance to align her statement with police reports regardless of what actually happened. Texts proving the body cam footage was deliberately edited before release. The doors at the back of the chamber opened. 3 state investigators entered, carrying formal notices and warrants. They had been waiting for this moment, for the evidence to become public. "Principal Vance," one called out. "Superintendent Pike, we need you to step into the hallway." Vance's composure cracked. "I resign," she announced, her voice shrill. "Effective immediately." She grabbed her purse and fled the chamber. Pike tried to maintain control. This meeting will continue," a board member interrupted. "But you're relieved of duty pending investigation." Outside the chamber, police radios crackled. Weller was being taken into custody on assault and falsifying record charges. Dugan's suspension was announced over the police band, his indictment pending. The chamber dissolved into controlled chaos. Reporters rushed to file updates. Parents demanded answers. Board members huddled with legal counsel. The 6 SEALs maintained their positions, watching everything. Through it all, Malcolm kept his eyes on his father. Isaiah sat straight-backed in his chair, face calm but glowing with vindication. For the first time since graduation night, truth had won. Justice had arrived with crushing force. Malcolm saw victory in his father's expression, not just personal victory, but something larger. The victory of dignity over dismissal, of truth over power, of a father showing his son that standing tall brings its own reward. The afternoon sun streamed through the high windows of Westfield's auditorium, casting warm light across rows of seats that had witnessed both injustice and redemption. Parents, students, and community members filed in quietly, their mood markedly different from graduation night. There was no tension now, only anticipation. Denise sat in the front row, hands folded in her lap, watching volunteers arrange flowers and certificates on the stage. Her phone kept buzzing with updates, each one sweeter than the last. The district attorney's office had formally dropped all charges against Isaiah that morning. The statement acknowledged clear video evidence of police misconduct and coordinated attempts to mislead investigators. Superintendent Pike faced a state-level probe into his role in the cover-up, with investigators seizing computers and files from his office. Gordon Vail's carefully crafted public image had crumbled overnight. His text messages about removing that family from graduation photos had gone viral, forcing the city council to emergency session. They voted unanimously to cancel his $40 million development contract, citing moral character clauses. The police chief held a disastrous press conference trying to explain why he had approved the release of edited body cam footage. He stumbled through prepared remarks while reporters hammered him with questions about institutional bias and abuse of power. But the news that brought tears to Denise's eyes arrived just before the ceremony. Malcolm's Scholarship Foundation had not only reinstated his award, but increased the amount as a gesture of reconciliation. 2 more prestigious universities contacted Helena Price, offering full rides after reading about Malcolm's dignity under pressure. The auditorium filled steadily. Teachers who had privately supported the Bookers now stood openly beside them. Veterans groups turned out in force, their presence a quiet reminder that service demanded respect. Local civil rights leaders came to witness justice served. The 6 SEALs took positions at the back of the hall. Lucas, Ben, Omar, Victor, Eli, and Nate. They weren't here as saviors this time, but as witnesses to a family's vindication. Their testimony had helped crack the lies, but this moment belonged to the Bookers. Behind the stage, Malcolm adjusted his graduation gown, the same one he'd worn a week ago. Isaiah stood beside him, straight-backed in his dress blues, the Marine Corps pins gleaming. His bruises were fading but still visible, badges of honor now rather than marks of shame. "You ready?" Isaiah asked softly. Malcolm nodded, fingering the honors cord draped around his neck. "More than ready." The ceremony began without long speeches or formal introductions. The community hadn't gathered for politics or platitudes. They were here to correct a wrong in the most visible way possible. The student body president spoke first, brief and direct. "Last week, we watched injustice unfold in this room. Today, we make it right. Malcolm Booker will receive his diploma again, this time with his father walking beside him as he always should have." Applause rippled through the auditorium as Malcolm and Isaiah stepped onto the stage together. The contrast with graduation night was stark. No one tried to remove Isaiah. No one questioned his right to stand tall beside his son. The power dynamics that had enabled the original attack lay in ruins. They crossed to center stage, where Malcolm's principal pro tem waited with a new diploma holder. The old one had been tainted by what followed it. This one represented truth restored. Malcolm accepted it with a firm handshake, then turned to face the audience. Isaiah started to step back, but Malcolm caught his arm. "Wait," he said clearly into the microphone. "There's something else." The audience hushed. Malcolm reached up and removed his honors cord, the golden rope that marked his academic achievements. He held it carefully, this symbol of everything he and his family had worked for. "You taught me not to bow," Malcolm said to his father, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "You showed me that dignity matters more than comfort, that truth matters more than power." He placed the cord in Isaiah's hands. "This belongs to you too. Everything I achieved came from watching you stand straight." Isaiah's fingers closed around the cord. Father and son stood together, unashamed of the tears in their eyes. The audience rose as one, applause thundering off the walls. Denise climbed the steps to join them, her face glowing with pride and vindication. The family that was supposed to be erased, supposed to accept humiliation quietly, stood together in full view of their community. The 6 SEALs remained at attention in the back, watching justice delivered. They had helped shield the truth until it could emerge in full force, but this victory belonged to Isaiah Booker, the Marine who refused to surrender his dignity, The father who showed his son how to face injustice. The man who stood straight when others tried to make him bow. The applause continued, washing over the stage in waves. Isaiah held his son's honors cord in one hand and his wife's hand in the other. They stood together where they were meant to be all along, their presence itself a testament to truth's eventual triumph over power. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please like the video and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.